Okay, so Hare Krishna, Shruti, Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for joining. So we're on the 6th chapter of the 2nd canto. And over to you, Shruti.
How many verses are we chanting at first, Prabhuji? The first set?
Good question. It will be 6 verses.
First set. Okay.
Yeah. And
Thank
in
you.
terms of English, maybe Lena, would you like to read the English?
Yes, please. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Great.
Hare
Krishna.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya Brahmovacha Vacham Vahnirmukham Kshetram Chandasam Saptadhatavah Havyakavyamritannanam Jihva Sarvarasasya Cha.
Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Virat Purusa, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hymns, and his tongue is the productive center of different foodstuffs and delicacies for offering to the demigods, the forefathers, and the general mass of people.
Sarvasunam cha vayoscha tannase paramayane Ashvinor oshadhinam cha grano moda pramodayo.
His 2 nostrils are the generating centers of our breathing and all other airs. His smelling powers generate the Aswini Kumara, demigods, and all kinds of medicinal herbs, and his breathing energies produce different kinds of fragrance.
Rupanam tejasam chakshur divah suryasya chakshini karnau disham cha tirthanam shrotram akasha shabdayoh.
His eyes are the generating centers of all kinds of forms, and they glitter and illuminate. His eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets. His ears hear from all sides and are receptacles for all the Vedas, and his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and of all kinds of sound.
Tadgatram vastu saranam saubhagasya cha bhajanam tvagasya sparshavayoscha sarvamedhasya chaivahi.
His bodily surface is the breeding ground for the active principles of everything and for all kinds of auspicious opportunities. His skin, like the moving air, is the generating center for all kinds of sense of touch and is the place for performing all kinds of sacrifice.
Romanyudbhijya jatinam yairvayatnyastu sambhritaha keshashmashrunakanyasya Shilalohabhravidyutam.
The hairs on his body are the cause of all vegetation, particularly of those trees which are required as ingredients for sacrifice. The hairs on his head and face are reservoirs for the clouds, and his nails are the breeding ground of electricity, stones, and iron ores.
Bahavo lokapalanam prayashah kshema karmanam.
The Lord's arms are the productive fields for the great demigods and other leaders of the living entities who protect the general mass.
Right.
Hari Bol.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. So let's have a quick look. So this is the description of the Virat Roop, as you can see. And the title of the chapter is Purusha Shukta, confirmed. But actually
Sorry.
It's a description of the Vishwaroop which is taking place, the universal form of the Lord, which exists only in this material world, doesn't exist in the spiritual world. But it's basically the form of the Lord encompassing the whole universe. So Brahma, Lord Brahma, giving a description to Narad Muni, a detailed description of the opulences of Vishwarup as a source of everyone and everything we hear, see, and experience in the creation. And as we saw, even the hairs on the Vishwarup represent so many different aspects of him. So let's continue. And pretty much the whole chapter is on these lines. Okay.
How many verses now?
Yeah. It's 7 to 16.
7 to 16. Okay.
Quite a few verses now.
Yeah. Vikramo bhurбhuvah swascha kshemasya sharanasya cha sarvakamavarasyapi hareshcharana aspadam.
Would you like me to carry on, Prabhuji, or does somebody else want to read?
You can, or if Shavi is there, or Puna Mataji, they're welcome to as well.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, if it is okay, I can read, Prabhuji.
Okay, absolutely. Go for it.
Thank you, Leena Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thus, the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear.
Apam viryasya sargasya parjanyasya prajapatehe pumsah shishna upasthastu prajatyananda nirvritehe.
From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting.
Payuryamasya mitrasya parimokshasya narada himsaya nirritir mrityor nirayasya gudam smritaha.
O Narad, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc.
Parabhuter adharmasya tamasaschapi paschimah nadyo nadanadinam cha gotranam asthi samhatihi.
The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustrations and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets. On his bones are stacked the great mountains.
Avyaktarasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha udaram viditam pumso hridayam manasah padam.
The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of the great oceans, and his belly is a resting place from the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus, it is known by the intelligence class of men.
Dharmasya mama tubhyam cha kumaranam bhavasya cha vijnanasya cha sattvasya parasyatma parayanam.
Also, the consciousness of the great personality is the abode of religion principles, mine, yours, and those of the four bachelors, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanat, Kumara, and Sanandana. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and transcendental knowledge.
Aham bhavan bhavashchaiva ta ime munayo grajah sura sura nara nagah khaga mriga sarisripah gandharvapsaraso yaksha raksho bhuta ganoragah pashavah pitarah siddhah vidyadhrashcharanadrumah अन्ये च विविधा जीवा जलस्थलनभौकसः ग्रहर्क्षकेतवस्तारास्तडितस्तनयित्नवः सर्वं पुरुष एवेदं भूतं भव्यं भवच्च यत् तेनेदम् आवृतं विश्वं वितस्तिमधितिष्ठति.
Beginning from Brahma,
From me,
Brahma, down to you and Bhava Siva, the great sages who were born before you, the demigods, the demons, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles,
etc.
all are
and phenomenal manifestations
of the universes, namely the planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and inhabitants of the different planetary systems, named the Gandharvas, Apsaras,
Yakshas,
Rakshasas,
Bhutaganas,
Aragas,
Pashus,
Pittas,
Siddhas, Vidyadharas,
Karanas,
Charan,
and all the other different varieties of living entities, including the birds, beasts, trees, and everything that be all covered are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times, namely past, present, and future, although he is transcendental to all of them, eternally existing in a form not exceeding 9 inches.
Well done. Who was this, Katan?
Yes.
Well done, Katan. Fantastic
Hare
reading.
Krishna.
Not easy, but you did very, very well. Thank you so much. So, a lot more detail about the Lord's universal form. It gives freedom from fear, fulfillment of all desires, material pleasures, as well as death. His front is religion. His back is irreligion. Everything comes from the Lord, including irreligion. So this is quite hard to understand and quite hard to accept as well. Beginning from Brahma down to Narad and Bhava, that's Lord Shiva, all the great sages who were born before, the demigods, the demons, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, etc., are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times. So everything is within the universal form of the Lord, namely past, present, and future, although he is transcendental to all of them. So he's got actually nothing to do with it, but he's the source of it. This is, again, a very inconceivable nature of the Lord. Although it comes from him, he's got nothing to do with it. Eternally existing in a form, he is always as Paramatma, existing eternally in a form not exceeding 9 inches. So all is within him, yet he appears as the super soul, 9 inches tall. So this super soul is also known as Paramatma. He travels with us while we are in this material world. So in this body of ours, there's 2 souls. One is us, and the second is the Supreme Lord in his form as Paramatma, not exceeding 9 inches. So this is how it's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's continue. The next set is up to 22.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you so much. And beautifully read. These verses are not easy. So
I know. I mean, it's they are definitely not easy. I thought I should take some time to read it beforehand.
but you're
Because
doing so nicely, so amazing actually. Thank you.
I took some time this afternoon. I tried practicing. I know these words are tongue twisters as always. It's not easy to
Yeah.
get around them, and yeah, I know. Even now, I'm sure I've made some mistakes, but
No, it's
I'm
very good.
the opportunity. Thank
Very,
you.
very nice. No, thank you.
22 is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, Prabhuji. स्वधेष्ण्यं प्रतपन् प्राणो बहिश्च प्रतपत्यसौ एवं विराजं प्रतपन् स्तपत्यन्तर्बहिः पुमान्.
The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally.
सोमृतस्य भयस्येषो मर्त्यमन्नं यदत्यगात् महिमैषय ततो ब्रह्मन् पुरुषस्य दुरत्ययः.
He and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the controller of immortality, and fearlessness, and he is transcendental to death and the fruitive actions of the material world. O Narada, O Brahmana, it is therefore difficult to measure the glories of the Supreme Person.
पादेषु सर्वभूतानि पुंसः स्थितिपदो विदुः अमृतं क्षेमम् अभयं त्रिमूर्ध्नोधायि मूर्धसु.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not to be known as the supreme reservoir of all materials, opulences by the 1/4 of his energy in which all the living entities exist. Deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from the anxieties of old age and disease exist in the kingdom of God, which is beyond the 3 higher planetary systems and beyond the material coverings.
पादास्त्रयो बहिश्चासन् अप्रजानाम्य आश्रमाः अन्तस्त्रिलोक्यास्त्वपरो गृहमेधो बृहद्व्रतः.
The spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond the material world, and it is especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow the celebratory vows must live in without the three material worlds.
Suti Sruti Vichakrame Vishwan Tashananashane Ubhe Yada Vidya cha Purushastu Bhayashrayah.
By his energies, the all-pervading personality of Godhead is thus comprehensively the master in activities of controlling and devotional
service.
He is the ultimate master of both nescience and factual knowledge of all situations.
Yasmad andam virat jatne bhutendriya gunatmakah tadravyam atyagad vishwam gobhi surya ivatapan.
From that personality of Godhead, all the universe's globes and the universe's forms, which all material elements, qualities, and senses are generated, yet he is aloof from such material manifestations like the sun, which is separate from its ray and heat.
Love the way you're reading. Very, very nice. Dramatic reading. Good. Good boy. So, the Vishwarupi is an expansion of the Super Soul, which maintains the whole creation, yet remains aloof, just like the sun remains separate from its rays, which expand all over the universe. Very nice example. So the sun, its influence is all over the universe, yet it's not affected by any part of the universe because its impact is through its rays, which go everywhere. So the spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond this material world. So in essence, the measurement is given of how big the spiritual world is in comparison with the material world, our world. And if we understand, like we discussed last week, how when Lord Mahavishnu, Karanadaksha Vishnu, is lying on the casual ocean and he's breathing out and millions of universes come out from the pores of his skin. So we are in one of those tiny universes, the smallest universe, in fact. So this material world, although we say it's 3/4, actually its dimensions are even less than 3/4, but 3/4 is reasonable calculation given by the Bhagavatam. But it consists of millions. The quarter, the material world, consists of millions and millions of universes, of which we are in one of the smallest. So the vastness of this creation is beyond our imagination. So, and this world is specially meant for those who will never be reborn. What does that mean? It means that we are very fortunate that in this world we can try to get out of this world by learning from the scriptures, from the devotees, from the guru, about how to live in this world in a way that allows us to transcend this world, go back to the spiritual world. However, the warning is given also in this chapter. If we are attached to family life and we do not strictly follow our vows, then we must live in this world. So this is a warning. So, of course, how do we become detached to the family? Everybody's so attached to their children and husband, wife, mother, father, etc., relatives, house, car. Well, that's our downfall. If we stay attached, even after learning so much about spirituality, then unfortunately, we've got nowhere else to go. We're going to stay in this world. So, okay, let's move on. And next one is up to 32.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Okay, great.
Yadasya nabhyannalinad aham asam mahatmanah navidam yatnya sambharan purushavayavan rite.
When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for
sacrificial performance
except the bodily limbs of the great personality Godhead.
Teshu yatnyasya pashavah savanaspatayah kushaha idam cha devayajanam kalaschoru gunanvitah.
For performing sacrificial ceremonies, one requires sacrificial ingredients such as flowers, leaves, and straw, along with a sacrificial altar and a suitable time spring.
Vastunyoshadhayah sneha rasaloha mrido jalam rucho yajumshi samani chaturhotram cha sattama.
Other requirements
are
utensils,
grains, clarified butter, honey, gold, earth, water, the Adi Veda,
Rigved,
Veda, Yajur Veda, and Samaveda, and the 4 priests perform the sacrifice.
Namadheyani mantrascha dakshinaschа vratani cha devatanukramah kalpah sankalpastantrameva cha.
Other necessities, including invoking the different names of demigods for specific
hymns, and vows of recompense in accordance with the particular scripture for specific purposes and by specific processes.
Gatayo matayashchaiva prayaschittam samarpanam purushavayavairete sambhara sambhrita maya.
Thus, I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and
paraphernalia
of
sacrifice
from the personal body parts of the personality of Godhead by invocation of demigods' names. The ultimate goal, Vishnu, was gradually attained, and thus compensation and ultimate offering were completed.
Iti sambhrita sambharaha purushavayavairaham तमेव पुरुषं यज्ञं तेनैवायजम् ईश्वरम्.
Thus, I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord.
ततस्ते भ्रातर इमे प्रजानां पतयो नव अयजन् व्यक्तम् अव्यक्तं पुरुषं सुसमाहिताः.
My dear son, thereafter your 9 brothers, who are the masters of living creatures, perform the sacrifice with proper rituals to satisfy both the manifested and non-manifested personalities.
ततश्च मनवः काले ईजिरे ऋषयो परे पितरो विबुधा दैत्या मनुष्याः क्रतुभिर्विभुम्.
Thereafter, the Manus, the fathers of mankind, the great sages, the forefathers, the learned scholars, the Daityas, and mankind performed sacrifices meant to please the Supreme Lord.
नारायणे भगवति तदिदं विश्वमाहितं गृहीतमायोरुगुणः सर्गादावगुणः स्वतः.
All the material manifestations of the universe are therefore situated in his powerful material energies, which he accepts self-sufficiently, although he is eternally without affinity for the material modes.
सृजामि तन्नियुक्तोऽहं हरो हरति तद्वशः विश्वं पुरुषरूपेण परिपाति त्रिशक्तिधृक्.
By his will, I create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he himself, in his eternal form as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these 3 energies.
Brilliant. Thank you. Fantastic. So, Lord Brahma is explaining how he was born from the abdominal lotus flower of Lord Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So we can just see that. This is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, is the Vishnu who expands into every single universe. So Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, from him all the universes come out, and then he expands as a second Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And from his abdomen, his navel, the lotus flower grows, on top of which is situated Brahma. Now, Lord Brahma had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. Thus, Brahma created the ingredients as provided by the Lord, and the paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, who is the enjoyer of the sacrifice in the first place. And he, Brahma, and his sons, the 9 sons, and thereafter the Manus, the sages, etc., they perform the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. And even though the ingredients are produced from the parts of the body of the Lord, the Lord is not reduced in any way. This is one thing which is very important to understand. Okay. So, sorry, yes, how many verses? 1 second. Up to 38, please, Shruti.
Okay. इति ते भिहितं तात यथेदम् अनुपृच्छसि नान्यद् भगवतः किञ्चिद् भाव्यं सदसदात्मकम्.
My dear son, Whatever you inquired from me, I have thus explained unto you. And you must know for certain that whatever there is, either as cause or as effect, both in the material and spiritual worlds, is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
न भारती मेऽङ्गमृषोपलक्ष्यते न वै क्वचिन्मे मनसो मृषा गतिः न मे हृषीकाणि पतन्त्यसत्पथे यन्मे हृदौत्कण्ठ्यवता धृतो हरिः.
O Narad, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false, nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter.
सोऽहं समाम्नायमयस्तपोमयः प्रजापतीनाम् अभिवन्दितः पतिः आस्थाय योगं निपुणं समाहितस्तं नाध्यगच्छं यत आत्मसम्भवः.
Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and am an expert in mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities, who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth.
So we can see this is a really powerful verse. Brahma is so perfect, yet even he cannot understand the Supreme Lord. Very, very an interesting verse.
नतोऽस्म्यहं तच्चरणं समीयुषां भवच्छिदं स्वस्त्ययनं सुमङ्गलं यो ह्यात्ममाया विभवं स्म पर्यगात् यथा नभस्मान्तमथा परे कुतः.
Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits?
नाहं न यूयं यदृतां गतिं विदुर् न वामदेवः किमुता परे सुराः तन्मायया मोहितबुद्धयस्त्विदं विनिर्मितं चात्मसमं विचक्ष्महे.
Since neither Lord Shiva nor you nor I could ascertain the limits of spiritual happiness, how can other demigods know it? And because all of us are bewildered by the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord, we can see only this manifested cosmos according to our individual ability.
यस्यावतार कर्माणि गायन्ति ह्यस्मदादयः नयं विदन्ति तत्त्वेन तस्मै भगवते नमः.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto that Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose incarnations and activities are chanted by us for glorification, though he can hardly be fully known as he is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, incredible set of verses here. Let me just dig it up. Lord Brahma then says that because he has caught hold of the lotus feet of the Lord, so of the Supreme Lord Hari, with great zeal, His words have never proven false. And he's written the Brahma-Samhita, which is a book that we refer to often. And these are beautiful prayers of Lord Brahma describing the Supreme Lord. His words have never proven false, nor his mind hindered in its progress, nor his senses degraded. Brahma explains that the Lord cannot be understood even by him, even by Lord Shiva. Even the Lord himself doesn't understand the limit of his transcendence. This is the extraordinary aspect of the Supreme. Again, inconceivable for us to understand. Thus, he recommends surrender to the Lord's lotus feet. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? Okay. So this is up to the end now, huh? Yeah, Shruti.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Oops. There you go.
स एष आद्यः पुरुषः कल्पे कल्पे सृजत्यजः आत्मात्मन्यात्मनात्मानं स संयच्छति पाति च.
That Supreme Original Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, expanding his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, the first incarnation, creates this manifested cosmos, but he is unborn. The creation, however, takes place in him, and the material substance and manifestations are all himself. He maintains them for some time and absorbs them into himself again.
So this is important to understand how this is the confirmation in the Bhagavatam that actually Krishna is the source of even Mahavishnu. Sometimes it's regarded to be the other way around, that Vishnu appeared first and after that Krishna took birth or appeared. But actually Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And Brahma confirms that again in the Brahma-Samhita when he chants many times, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So very interesting, this verse.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a question there?
Yeah, sure.
Since you discussed that shlok, so here it says that the creation, however, takes place in him, and the material substance and manifestations are all himself.
Yeah.
He maintains them for some time and absorbs them into himself again.
Yeah.
Could you please elaborate? What are they trying to say here?
Yeah. See, within Mahavishnu, everything is within him. And when he wishes, the pradhan, it's called the pradhan, the material substance comes out from his body. And then it stays for some time, 311 trillion, 40 billion years. And then when he breathes in, all of it goes back into his body. In the meantime, we, the living entities, are, when he's breathing in, we are in a dormant state, asleep, within the body of Mahavishnu. When he breathes out, we also come out and we start interacting with the material substance, the material world. And that is our opportunity to get out of this material world and go back to the spiritual world. When he breathes in, again, we go back into the body of Mahavishnu, lying dormant until he breathes out again. That's the overview.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. So we are like the gut microbiome for him, isn't it?
Yeah. I see a lot more. Sorry, go on.
No, it's just, sorry, I'm just trying to,
Visualize it, understand it.
No, I just had an article, about the gut microbiomes and how so many bacteria, viruses, and so many small things live in our gut, and they are, they are helpful to us. So in this case, we are kind of his gut microbiome, inert, but then, once we come out and we interact in the, material world.
That's correct. That's correct. But of course, he doesn't need anything like to sustain him. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's a good example, actually. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, I was just wondering, I hope we as microbes don't cause so much havoc as the COVID has caused to us.
Mataji, not all bacteria and viruses are
It's
bad.
bad,
I'm
yeah.
a scientist, so I would say, there are some good ones as well, and they really help us out. So I believe we are in the good category.
Oh, that's let's believe that. Thank you, Haribol.
It's true, actually. All Atmas are essentially spiritual. Of course, they're spiritual, hence they're good. But because of the influence of material world and Maya and the three modes of material nature, it sort of we get influenced by those modes. So our behavior may not always be on a spiritual platform. So interesting. Thank you, Punamadaji. Thank you.
विशुद्धं केवलं ज्ञानं प्रत्यक्षं यद् अवस्थितं सत्यं पूर्णम् अनाद्यन्तं निर्गुणं नित्यम् अद्वयम् ऋषे विदन्ति मुनयः प्रशान्तात्मेन्द्रियाशयाः यदा तदेवासत्तर्कैस्तिरोधीयेत विप्लुतम्.
The personality of Godhead is pure, being free from all contaminations of material tinges. He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all-pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narad, O great sage, the great thinkers can know him when completely freed from all material hankerings, and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of the senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted and the Lord disappears from our sight.
आद्योऽवतारः पुरुषः परस्य कालस्वभावः सदसन्मनश्च द्रव्यं विकारो गुण इन्द्रियाणि विराट् स्वराट् स्थास्नुचरिष्णु भूम्नः.
Karan Narayana Vasai Vishnu is the first incarnation of the Supreme Lord, and he is the master of eternal time, space, cause, and effects. Mind the elements, the material ego, the modes of nature, the senses, the universal form of the Lord, Garbhadakshai Vishnu, and the sum total of all living beings, both moving and unmoving.
Have we lost you, Shruti?
She's muted.
भवो यज्ञ इमे प्रजेशा दक्षादयो ये भवदादयश्च स्वर्लोकपाला खगलोकपाला नृलोकपालास्तनलोकपाला गन्धर्वविद्याधरचारणेशा ये यक्षरक्षोरगनागनाथाः ये वा ऋषीणां वृषभाः पितॄणां दैत्येन्द्रसिद्धेश्वर दानवेन्द्राः अन्ये च ये प्रेतपिशाचभूत कूष्माण्डयादो मृगपक्ष्यधीशाः यत्किञ्च लोके भगवन्महस्वत् ओजसहस्वद्बलवत् क्षमावत् श्रीह्रीविभूत्यात्मवदद्भुतार्णं तत्त्वं परं रूपवदस्वरूपम्.
I myself, Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, great generators of living beings like Daksha and Prajapati, yourselves, Narad and the Kumaras, heavenly demigods like Indra and Chandra, the leaders of the Bhurlok planets, the leaders of the earthly planets, the leaders of the lower planets, the leaders of the Gandharva planets, the leaders of the Vidyadhar planets, the leaders of the Charanlok planets, the leaders of the Yakshas, Rakshasas, and Uragas, the great sages, the great demons, the great atheists, and the great spacemen, as well as the dead bodies, evil spirits, satans, jinn, kushmandas, great aquatics, great beasts, and great birds, etc. In other words, anything and everything which is exceptionally possessed of power, opulence, mental and perceptual dexterity, strength, forgiveness, beauty, modesty, opulence, and breeding, whether in form or formless, may appear to be the specific truth and the form of the Lord, but actually they are not so. They are only a fragment of the transcendental potency of the Lord.
प्राधान्यतो यान् ऋष आमनन्ति लीलावतारान् पुरुषस्य भूम्नः आपीयतां कर्णकषायशोषान् न अनुक्रमिष्येत इमान् सुपेशान्.
O Narad, now I shall state, one after another, the transcendental incarnations of the Lord, known as Leela avatars. Hearing of their activities counteracts all foul matters accumulated in the ear. These pastimes are pleasing to hear and are to be relished. Therefore, they are in my heart. Hare Krishna.
Wonderful. Amazing, actually. Tough chapter, but beautifully recited. Thank you so much, Shruti, and Punamadaji as well. So the last portion, that Supreme Original Personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna, expanded as his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, Karnadaksha Vishnu, creates this manifested cosmos, but he is unborn. The creation, however, takes place in him, and the material substance are all himself. He maintains them for some time, absorbs them into himself again. Everything within this universe is nothing but a fragment of his energy. Yet, he is beyond all and ever uncontaminated. So then, we saw in the last verse, Brahma explains the Leela avatars. And the reason he says he's explaining the Leela avatars is anything that's rubbish in our mind because of the material association that we have will be destroyed by listening to the pastimes of the Leela avatars. So it gets a little bit easier now. Canto 2 is quite challenging. And Canto 3 is even more challenging. But once we get into the Leelas, it becomes a little bit more easier for us to absorb. So, are there any questions or any comments?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So it says Karnadaksha Vishnu is unborn. So he's like a stem cell. And because the world comes out of him, he is unborn, but still everybody comes out of him.
That's correct. Yet he's still unborn. When it says unborn, it means he doesn't have a birth. He doesn't take birth. He's always existed, just like Krishna. Always existed. Never a time when they don't exist. So that's what it means by unborn. And unaffected, even though the material creation comes from him, he's not affected by it. Just like the sun is not affected by the sun rays, even though the sun rays come from the sun.
Okay. Yeah.
It's inconceivable. It's something that our brain won't be able to completely comprehend this.
Or maybe I would like to, attach it to more science, so because luckily we're in that age, where science and technology is progressing and we can, make sense of it now.
We can try. We can try.
Yeah, but yeah, I didn't understand that it meant, like it is said for Shiva or Krishna, that it doesn't have a beginning. It doesn't like Om Purnat Purnamidam Purnasya, I mean Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So he's the one who has no beginning. He's
That's
the one who has no ending. So yeah, I understood it that way.
Same as yeah, that's correct. And that applies to Vishnu as well. Even though this creation comes from him, he's still unaffected by it. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Very good. Anything else? Anybody else?
Prabhuji, how many are there like that?
How many?
How many those are not born, like you said?
Oh,
like
all of the Supreme
Krishna?
Lord. All of them. All of them. All of them. All the avatars, all the incarnations, they're not born. They're not, they're beyond the material world. And there's billions, millions, trillions of them. All the expansions, all of the Lord and all of his expansions, they're all unborn.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, is tomorrow Ekadashi?
Oh, tomorrow is Ekadasi. That's correct. And we'll have Ekadasi satsang at 7:30 tomorrow evening. With the
okay,
Vishnu
Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Oh, Surinder, anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to share, please?
Hare Krishna. Dandavat
Yes.
Nitai Gaur Haribol. Sri Nityananda Chandram Patita Sharanadam Gauradam Tam Bhajeham. Yes, Prabhu, very interesting. This Bhagavad Katha is the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is the source of all energies, all incarnations, and all manifestations. So gradually in the Srimad Bhagavatam, they explain about different aspects, the demigods, and also the planetary system. It goes on to explain the Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. And also it mentioned the Guna avatars, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. And also now it is explained that in the next chapter, it will describe the glories of the Lila avatars. Like that. So there's many avatars. And Krishna, as already mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam in the earlier chapters, that it is expressed and accepted by all great sages and authorities that Krishna's tu Swayam Bhagavan, that Krishna is the original Supreme Person of Godhead. And as Lord Brahma is teaching to Narada in this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, so we have this Brahma-Samhita, as you mentioned, and repeatedly in Brahma-Samhita, Lord Brahma is confirming, Govindam Ari Purusham Tamaham Bhajam. So gradually, Lord Brahma, our great grand spiritual master, because we belong to the Brahma Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So he's our great grand spiritual master, and he's mercifully directing us to the lotus feet of the original Supreme Person of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Govindam Adi Purusham. Adi Purusham means he's the original Supreme Person of Godhead. So in this way, so this is our main point, that we have to come to the point of exclusive devotion to the original Supreme Person of Godhead, Sri Krishna, Bhagwan, Swayam Bhagwan Sri Krishna, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. This is one point. Second point is that we have to try to aspire for unalloyed devotional service, that is pure devotional service, not tinged with karma, that is the desire for material enjoyment, and not tinged by Mayavad concept. And not tinged by this desire for a mystic yoga aspect. So we should aspire for a pure devotional service. And then also there is explained that there is this gradual progression in spiritual, our spiritual development, there is gradation, spiritual gradation. So in this chapter, because it references with some planetary system and the creation, so first of all, I would like to recite a few verses in relations to the planets and in terms of Sharanagati, because main point here, Lord Brahma came to the point of Sharanagati. So this, we all are being guided by our great grand spiritual master, Lord Brahma, to come to the point of Sharanagati. And these verses I'm going to recite, they are verses of Sharanagati from the chapter of like confidence in the Lord's protection. Yes, so first one, Sarvalokeshu Shri Krishna Padabjaika Rakshakatvam Martyo Mrityu Vyalabhita Palayan Lokan Sarvan Nirbhayam Nadhyagachat Tvatpadabjam Prapya Yadricha Yadya Shustha Site Mrityur Asmad Apaiti. This verse was spoken by Srimati Devaki. The lotus feet, O Lord Shri Krishna, the only protection for all planes of life. O Supreme Lord, despite fleeing throughout every planet of the universe out of fear of the black snake of death, the mortal being cannot find a place devoid of fear. But when he is blessed with the fortune of coming to the shelter of your lotus feet, he becomes reposed with a peaceful heart, and death itself flees from his company. And the second one is as follows. Mayadhisayaiva bhagavata kshema vidhatritvam vishvasya sthiti layodbhava heturadyo yogesvarairapi duratyaya yogamaya kshemam vidhasyati sano bhagavan trayadhishas Tatrasmadya vimrishena kiyan ihartha. Only the absolute magician, the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, is capable of bestowing all good fortune. The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, the Lord of the three worlds, who is a cause of the universal creation, sustenance and annihilation, and whose magical potency is insurmountable, for even the greatest yogis will surely bless us with all good fortune. Could we ever doubt this? This verse was spoken by Lord Brahma himself. And the last in this one is as follows. Haridasa Harina Rakshita Eva Ma Bhairan Mandamano Vichintya Bhaudhaya Mischiram Yatana Naivami Prabhavanti Paparipava Swami Nano Sridharaha Alasyam Vyapaniya Bhakti Sulabham Adhyayesva Narayanam Lokasya Vyasana Panodhana Karo Dasasya Kimna Kshamaha. This verse was spoken by a great devotee by the name of Sri Kula Shekhara. The servants of Lord Hari are always protected by Lord Hari. O wicked mind, fear not the thought or the multifarious perpetual tortures that are your due. Your enemies, your sins, have no claim over you, because the only actual Lord and Master is the Supreme Lord Sridhar. This is another name of Lord Shri Krishna. Give up your apathy and absorb your thoughts in Lord Narayan. This is another name of Lord Krishna, who is happily attainable by devotion. Is not he who destroys the calamities of all planets capable of annihilating the defects of his personal servitors? So in this way, with the mood of Sharanagati, we try to worship Hari, Guru and Vaishnava. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Wonderful sharing of Leela, slokas there, philosophy. Very good. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay, thank you so much. So we look forward to seeing everybody next week or tomorrow. We're continuing with the Bhagavatam anyway in the 10th canto. Otherwise, we shall catch up soon. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you.